Thank you, Speaker, and I'm incredibly proud to stand in this chamber to recognise the second International Women's Day since the Albanese Labor government came into office and to share some of the terrific progress we have made. We promised to lead the way in closing the gender pay gap in Australia and indeed to place gender equality at the core of our work. And since that first day of office, we've been doing it each and every day. Last year, in an Australian first, the Albanese Labor government passed legislation that would increase transparency and reporting of gender pay gaps. It requires businesses with more than 100 employees to publish the median gender pay gaps on their base salaries and total remuneration. On Tuesday, that collective data was made public for the first time. The Workplace Gender Equality Agency published gender pay gaps for nearly 5,000 Australian private sector employers, which demonstrated a record low of a 12% gender pay gap. It found pay gaps in favour of men in all industries and even across all female-dominated sectors. The median income was 11.6% higher for men than women. For more than 60% of Australian companies, women are still paid more than 5% less than men. And locally in Newcastle and in the Hunter, a number of companies have gender pay gaps well above 30%. Newcastle Greater Mutual Group has a gender pay gap of 34.5%. Glencore's gap is 41.4%. Origin Energy, Eraring's gap, 34.1%. Hunter Imaging Group's gap is 37.3%. And Hunter Primary Care has a gender pay gap of 73.1%. We know that transparency and accountability are critical for driving change, and shining a light on the gender pay gaps at an employer level, we're arming both individuals and organisations with the evidence they need to make meaningful action to accelerate closing the gap. Those of us on this side of the House, we are not prepared to wait 26 years to see a closing of this gap. That's why we have acted and acted with purpose. This government has made a number of measures to see this gap narrow, and it's why we have banned things like pay secrecy clauses. We've expanded access to flexible work arrangements, and we've established 10 days paid family and domestic violence leave. And that's why we've extended paid parental leave, invested in childcare and given aged care workers a pay rise. And our commitment to gender analysis means that there are better outcomes for women. Labor's cost of living tax cuts will give 90% of tax-paying women a bigger tax cut. As I said, transparency and accountability are critical for driving change. And as the CEO of the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, Mary Wooldridge, said, the time for talk and excuses is over. Change takes action, and employers need to double down on ensuring employees are fairly represented and equally valued and rewarded in the workplace. I couldn't agree more. Someone who I know was paying close attention to the gender pay gap statistics was the chair of the Hunter Worker Women's Committee, Teresa Hetherington, who said this week, it's not just your wage, it's your entitlements and the gaps in your employment that really have a strong effect on the overall outcome as we get older. The Hunter Workers Women's Committee, alongside the Union of Australian Women, will be hosting Newcastle's annual International Women's Day dinner on 8th of March, a chance to celebrate the progress made and reaffirm our commitment to continued work to improve gender equality in Australia. This year's dinner has special significance as, after more than 70 years, the phenomenal Newcastle branch of the Union of Australian Women is retiring and passing on their leadership baton to the Hunter Workers Women's Committee. But what an amazing innings it has been for the Newcastle branch of the Union of Australian Women, which was first established in 1950. Novocastrians like the late Janet Copley and her formidable co-spirators Janet Mundy, Mary Colcott and Linda Forbes, who have been the stalwarts of feminism and the labour movement in Newcastle. These women have played an integral role in the Union of Australian Women through its 70 years. I'd also like to acknowledge fellow members Joan Masterson, Val Harding, Barbara Dorr, Janet Sutherland, Annette Martis, Carmel Cook, Meryl Bathan, Betty Bakacek and Joan Anderson, along with her mother Cathy Williams and Fran Cameron, an inaugural member who joined in 1953 and was a member till she died till at 101.
Has concluded.